We're going to be starting now a Sichah in Chelik Tezayin, Va'ira Dalid. And it's going to be speaking about the plague of the Tzvardea, the frogs. The pasuk says, from the word, the Gemara Pesachim Merzel, Akelet Tashlichan Oisei, that when it comes to the nevelas, the trephis of an animal, you should give it to the dogs. Why? Because when the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they didn't. The dogs didn't bark. So al taschar, we give the nevelas, the meat, we give it to the dogs. So the Velt asks, 1 second. The frogs, they had such mesiras nefesh. They went into the ovens and to the kneading bowls. They went everywhere. They had mesiras nefesh beyond the dogs. So why weren't they zeicha to a reward? Give them something extra. So they say it's easier sometimes to jump into an oven than to close your mouth, than to keep your mouth shut. So we're gonna learn a sicha about the frogs, and let's begin. From pasuk Vayet Aaron es yadei, the pasuk in Parak Ches, pasuk Beis says that Aaron stretched out his hand, Vatal hatzvardeya, and the literally means the frog went up, Vatachas es eretz Mitzrayim, and covered the entire Mitzrayim. So the pasuk says that Aaron stretched out his arm, and a frog emerged and covered the land of Mitzrayim. So Rashi quotes the words Vatal hatzvardeya, and he explains Tzvardeya achas hoisa. Really, it was one frog. And the Egyptians were hitting it, and through every time that the Mitzrayim hit this frog, spews of frogs would swarm out from this frog and cover the entire land of Mitzrayim. So, in Pashtus, is Rashi the Oisin Tzubavornin. If you look at it simply, what's Rashi coming to try to explain? Why does the Torah say the expression Vatal hatzvardeya, and the tzvardeya emerged? Lashon Yachid, which is a singular. There was multitudes of frogs that were swarming Eretz Mitzrayim. So why would the pasuk use the expression Vatal hatzvardeya Lashon Yachid? Therefore Rashi explains, that in truth, in the beginning, there was one frog. Nor durch dem was hayu makin isa, through the Mitzrayim hitting the frogs, hat sie von sich arois gegeben nechilim nechem. Through that, there were streams and streams and many streams of frogs. Okay. Also in the Gemara, in Sanhedrin, and in Shmeis Rabbah, stellt sich auf dem, was steht, Vatal hatzvardeya b'lashon yachid. The Gemara and the Shmeis Rabbah are also bothered why the Torah uses the expression of tzvardeya lashon yachid. And there the Gemara brings two opinions. Opinion number one is Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva Eimer tzvardeya achas haisa, v'hi ashritza umola kol eretz Mitzrayim. According to Rabbi Akiva, he holds that there was actually one frog, and this frog had babies, and it filled the land of Mitzrayim. In other words, according to Rashi, what happened? Every time a tzvardeya every time that frog was hit, it was just like a video game, just spewing out frogs. According to Rabbi Akiva in the Gemara, it's that every time they hit the frog, or he says that every time there was one frog, and this frog had a bunch of babies. It doesn't say anything about hitting. It just says there was one frog, and it had a bunch of babies, and these babies filled the entire Eretz Mitzrayim. Okay, so Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says no. Tzvardeya achas haisa. Shirika lahem v'hem bo. According to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, there was one frog originally. This frog croaked, and other frogs came from all over the world to help him out in swarming Mitzrayim. So you basically have three opinions. Rashi's opinion is that there was one frog, and they would hit the frog, and there were swarms of frogs that came out of it. Rabbi Akiva holds that there was one Svardea, but it gave birth to many other frogs. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says there was one frog, and it croaked, it whistled to the other frogs, and they all came to help this frog. Okay, so now that Rabbi says Darvin Vashtim, you have to understand. Pirish Rashi is doch kidum yusuf if you pshutish mikra. Rashi, that's known, is always based on the pshutish mikra, the straightforward interpretation of the pasuk. And since Hashem does not fabricate unnecessary miracles, so this principle that the Eibishter doesn't fabricate the Eibishter doesn't fabricate unnecessary miracles also is in pshat of mikra. In other words, vigeret amo barucha. In other words, if Rashi has two explanations that he has in the Gemara, and one makes sense according to Pshut Shel Mikra, Rashi is going to use that pshat. So now that I've asked,
which is the one that makes most sense?
So which is the one that makes most sense? Let's see. Is Memela their seichel mechayev? So now a person's seichel says as Eibaynes was hat passiert. If wieviel mit ken sagen mefahr sein, as the nes hat anhalt in der Keteva, as much as you can say according to seichel that this miracle went with the realms of nature, we're going to try to touch up that as much in nature. So therefore, you don't have to make up things that something that was beyond the laws of nature. Anything that you could say that was in the laws of nature, we try to say that it happened in nature, because we have a cloud that Hashem does not make miracles just for no reason. Okay, so now what's the Rebbe's question? Hi, for vos bring Rashi then pirish from Medrash as hoyu makin isay v'himatezes nechilim nechilim. So why does Rashi bring the explanation that they beat it and it spewed out many different frogs, swarms of frog? Was nes as der Chakoz soll von ihr areis kommen naya bashafen nechilim nechilim. Through this nest, what's happening here? You have one frog, and every time you hit the frog, it's like those games in the arcades, every time you hit the frog, more frogs came out. It's not a very natural thing that you hit a frog and more frogs come out. First of all, Rashi could have said, like the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that the frog whistled and many frogs came. Rashi touches up, like Rashi himself says, I think in the Gemara, that the frogs heard the voice and they all came. And then what comes out is that you don't have to say there was a new nest, that Hashem created something beyond the realms of nature. You could say like Rabbi Akiva, as Hishritzu Malakal Aretz Mitzrayim, that they gave birth, and those frogs that were born swarmed the entire land of Mitzrayim. Even though this is taka a miracle, because I don't know the nature of how long it takes a frog to give birth.
Humans that they can just.
Correct. So, but it's still you still need a nest, because a frog takes time. I don't know a day. I don't know how long frogs take to be born, but it's still a oifenisi. So at the end of the day, it's a nest which is bound by could be bound by the realms of teva, because he gave birth. Hishtitza he gave birth. Virashi touches that from the stomach emerged from its innards. That the offsprings emerged from its innards. Okay, so now what's the Rebbe's question? Basically, if Rashi can explain a Pshutisha Mikra, which that's Rashi's job, is to explain the simple pshat, why does Rashi choose from all three ways you could explain the Tzvardei Lashon Yachid? Why does Rashi choose the one which is the most complicated, not according to Pshat. Okay, the Noch is Rashi Mamshech. So then Rashi explains, V'zeu midrashi. Rashi says that what I just said, this is from the Medrash. Now he says, Upshutei yesh leimar. So he says, according to the simple explanation, you could say, that why does it say, Batal hatzvardeya, why does it say tzvardeya lashon yachid? Shirutz hatzvardim koida lashon yichidus. Lashon yichidus. Rashi says that it could be said that a swarmings of frogs, even if you have a swarmings of frogs, you could also, in Hebrew, you could use the lashon of like a yachid. You could use it as singular. And Rashi brings a proof. V'chein v'atehi hakinam. It says about the makeh of kinim. So what does the pasuk say? V'atehi hakinam, which means the kinam. What does kinam mean? Kinam is lashon yachid. How do you say lice in lashon rabbim? Kinim. Yet the pasuk says v'atehi hakinam. So the pasuk uses the expression v'atehi hakinam lashon yachid, and we know over there by the kinam it means harechisha. It means that there was a mass of lice. And Rashi says, anybody who speaks French here? You speak French? Gidulia belaz. Gidulia, I don't know how to pronounce this properly. Gidulira belaz, which means like swarming of frogs. So even though kinam is lashon yachid, but it means over there swarming of frogs. V'af vatalat tzvardeya. So Rashi says that vatalat tzvardeya also means green nurya belaz. Whatever this in Old French, it means it's also swarming of frogs. Okay, that's what Rashi says. So now the Rabbi is going to focus. It's very interesting. Usually you learn the Rashi Sichos. The Rabbi doesn't usually focus on when Rashi says in Old French, this is what it means, but this is what the Rabbi is going to focus on. A few diukim. Okay. So now the Rabbi says, Azai. Darfim Hashem, we have to understand. The Chol HaReish is the Rashi Oisin to Mefarzayim Pshutei Shel Mikra. Rashi always explains Pshutei Shel Mikra. Unor dan when the Pshat HaKosef is not gladik bring Rashi and Agoda Miyasheves Divrei Mikra. And whenever Pshat is not self-understood, then Rashi will bring a medrash to explain further. But usually Rashi, always his derech is Pshutei Shel Mikra. So as wie kommt es, was da ist Rashi macht in dem Pirish, was allein schreibt, es ist mit Rashi fahrt dem Pirish, was es wie Rashi schreibt, Pshutai. So now the Rebbe says, 1 second. If Rashi is Pshutai Shel Mikra, how come Rashi brings the Medrash first, and then Pshutai Shel Mikra? Rashi should have said, Pshutai, or Pshutai b'Mikra Shloimy, that even when it says the Lashon of Tzvardeya, it can mean also Lashon Rabbim of swarming, like we see V'atehi hakinam. Why does Rashi first bring the Medrash and then bring Pshutei Shloimy? The Rebbe says, Reich is not moving, it's also not understood. Shloimy does was Rashi darf ankommen zu Araya, as Hatzvardeya meant Shoretz Hatzvardim, when der Fall steht es Beloshen Yichidis is moving Bepashtus. So the fact that Rashi has to bring a Raya, that Tzvardeya, which is a Lashon Yochid, means Shoretz Hatzvardim, that there were swarms of frogs, is understood. She is schwer zu sagen, as der Nomen Tzvardeya, so meinen die Zach was Shoretz Hatzvardim. It's difficult to say that the word frogs means not frogs, but it means the swarming of frogs. It's difficult to say that. But steht nicht in Pasuk. It doesn't say that in the Pasuk. Und darf, and there is a Begriff, was legt sich auf alle Stotzum und nicht dafke auf mit dem Tzvardeya. And this terminology to say Shorutz, it doesn't only refer to frogs. Bechlal, what's Shrotzim? Shrotzim means creeping animals, animals that swarm. A lot of animals swarm. It doesn't say that dafka on Tzvardeya. So what Rashi is saying is that Tzvardeya means Shorutz HaTzvardim. That the frogs are swarming. It doesn't say that in the pasuk. Therefore, bring Rashi a raya from V'atehi hakinam. So therefore, Rashi has to bring a raya from the lice. Was the taish from kinam is rechisha. That over there, what does kinam mean? even though kinam is a lashon yachid, because how do you say lice in Hebrew? Lashon rabim is kinim, so you're saying kinam. It means rechisha. It means swarming. Even though the word rechisha, which means swarming, lav dafke is a particular to the word kinam. So what the Rebbe is saying is this, that Rashi has to bring a raya from kinam, I understand. Because the fact that tzvardeya, you're saying tzvardeya over here doesn't mean a regular frog. According to Pshuta, it means sharutz or shirutz hatzvardeim, the swarming of the frogs. Okay, how do you know over here that tzvardeya means that over here means swarming of the frogs? So he says, I see the same thing. Vatihya kinam. Vatihya kinam doesn't only mean one lice; it means rechisha, many lice. So fine, I understand why Rashi has to bring a raya from kinam. However, okay, so now he says this. And under the verta, what does that mean? Volshiritz hatzvardeya, hatzvardim, given andrish, wie bei andere shlotzim chuli. If the swarming of frogs would have been different than any other chlal insects, is damos glatiker to zogen as tzvardeya. So then it makes sense to say that the word tzvardeya, punkvi, is made them sheretz, that just like tzvardeya means the actual insect, ois kitel von alle andere shlotzim, which is different than all other insects. In oizen, the way it looks, oifir, and the way it acts, and azay weiter, azay mit das ich sein, ois kitelikait. So too over here, it means like it's different, sein spezielle shiritz, a special swarming. Choshen ganzen glatik is nit, even though this is not very smooth. Because it should have said anders menukel. If this was true, it should have said the vowel should have been different, like it is by kinim. Steht kinam, gidel kaman. The pasuk sagt damals loshen shirutz. Sai by tzvardim and sai by alle sheretz nefesh chaya. So if the pasuk uses the loshen of shirutz by sai in this pasuk, by tzvardim and sai in other when it speaks about other shrotzim, as far as diraya vatiyah kinam kana. So now says Rabbi movement is not understood. For vos is by Rashi poshut as vatiyah kinam main torichisha. How does Rashi know that when by kinam it means rechisha, it means they were swarming? Was der Farbach nugen sich darf dort Rashi mit den Teich von Rechisha und bringt nicht kein Raya of them. Rashi doesn't bring a Raya that how do I know Kinam is Rechisha from another pasuk. No, the Pashtus, Kinam means Rechisha, means swarming. How does he know that? Und bringt nicht kein zweiten Pirish. Und bei Valtal hat Tzvardeya sagt und nur als zweiten Pirish, als Shloimy, Shirutz hat Tzvardim Kedelosh Nichidus. So the Rebbe asks another question. You're saying over here that what's bothering Rashi? Why use the lashon of tzvardeya, lashon yachid? So what do you say? That you should know tzvardeya over here doesn't mean just a frog or frogs. It means shirutz hatzvardim. Now when it comes to swarming of frogs, koida lashon yachidus, you can call it also a singular word. Now what's the raya? From vatihi kinam, that I see kinam also, even though it's lashon yachid, it means rechisha, means swarming of frogs. So that Rashi has to bring a raya that I see that in a singular. It can mean many, it can mean swarming, that I understand. He has to bring a raya to tzvardeya from kinam. But how does Rashi know by kinam that it means rechisha? Okay. Okay. So Gimel like this, he says, Azay. Some commentaries say, as Rashi's hechrich to taichem vatiyah kinam, that how does Rashi know by the lice that it means harachisha swarming is from them as the lashon kinam nun kimutza, is the fact that the Torah says kinam under the nun, there's a comment there, was is nit lashon rabim kinim, or nit lashon yachid kinam. So some of us want to say that it's interesting. It doesn't say, it says kinam with a comment under the nun. Now, if you want to say lice, lashon rabim, you should say kinim. And if you want to say one lice, you say kinam. So it's like nishtahin, nishtahir. What's kinam? When the Rebbe Muzman zogin, as though meint is need them shame from kinam. So that's why Rashi is saying that kinim doesn't mean lice, nor does badait from the chishas kinim. Over here we're talking about swarms of lice. Like them is moving, based on this is understood. As der far is das euch nit kein fuller Reihe, as euch tzvardeya meint, shirus hat tzvardim. And based on this, you can explain that it's not a complete proof that Tzvardeya means Shirus HaTzvardim, swarms of frogs. Ibalas von dem Loshen Vatalat Tzvardeya. Just because it says the words Vatalat Tzvardeya is Nitkein Hoichachaz doesn't mean Epis Anders Vida Nomen von Tzvardeya Loshen Yachid. So it's not so proven that the word Tzvardeya Loshen Yachid means swarms. Well, das is echt the Dik and Rashi, and this is what Rashi says. V'chein, what does Rashi say? Vatihi Akinam. And then it says Va'af, then Rashi says Va'af Vatalat Tzvardeya un oif Vos Erez Meisif. And then Rashi adds in French, Greenwald Blaz, Chosh bringt nicht kein Blaz oif Tzvardim, was steht frier Kampam. And Rashi doesn't bring the beforehand what Tzvardim means Blaz. Is doch verstandig, as Pirsh Tzvardim is Bavust, because everybody knows what Tzvardim means. Is noch them, Rashi zog Shirus HaTzvardim, after Rashi explains that what is over here Tzvardim means Shirus HaTzvardim, on Pirsh Shirus Veis min von frier, like we know what Shirus means. V'sherat Se'er Tzvardim, that there was frogs swarming, is Vos tut oif der Belaz. So what is he adding the las? Why is he adding the Old French? Now the Bavornish in them, is Tzvardeya Belaz is Greenwald. Was das Veis doch the Ben Chomish the Mikra knows this. But das is doch sein las, Französisch. In those days, what do they speak? They spoke French. Even today, how do you say swarms of frogs? This Greenwald. I learned a little French when I was in France, but I didn't learn what frogs means. Okay, when Shirus HaTzvardim Belaz, what does Shirus HaTzvardim mean in Old French? Vert Ashinoi. So what does it say by Tzvardim? It doesn't say Gduria. It says Greenwald. Aderech vidashinei kinom ashtot kinom. It's like it says kinom instead of kinim. Aderech ze in zayin belaz. For that's why again va'af v'talat tzvardeya. Therefore Rashi, nevertheless, Rashi says v'talat tzvardeya. Choch it says nitokin shinei, even though there's no difference in their pirish Greenwald belaz nit Greenwald. Rivalas they tell a fort on the dechishus hakinim mit the nomen kinom. But at the end of the day, the Torah calls the kinim kinom nit cooking. That was the chisha Sutan, nit blois mitten min von kinam. Not only focusing on how kinam, how rechisha has to do with all types of insects, not only lice, was das is der ikar schwerkeit in him uptight von kinam, und von tzvardeya als rechisha und shirutz, and that's why it's very difficult to say that over here means swarming. Is der far yesh leimar as ich tzvardeya by uns means shirutz tzvardeya. And therefore Rashi adds the word pshuta yesh leimar. You could say that maybe it means shirutz tzvardeya. Like then, based on this, we could explain for Rashi's makdim the Pirish HaMedrash, Friday Pirish HaPipshutei. We asked before, why does Rashi use the Medrash before Pshutei? Well, the Pshutei canal, because Pshutei Shemikra is not so glatik, and therefore Rashi has to bring the Medrash first. Okay, we'll stop here, and then tonight, for this year, we'll